Welcome, everyone. The truth is, we have a very dangerous report that just came out from the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. According to their inspectors, since last February, Iran has been significantly increasing its uranium enrichment to levels dangerously close to military-grade enrichment. This activity, which has continued since February until now, puts Iran in a position to potentially produce 10 nuclear bombs. Some media outlets report 9 bombs. Others say 10. The number is debated, but the point remains. The IAEA is warning that Iran's nuclear program poses a serious threat. The agency explicitly states it can no longer guarantee that the Iranian nuclear program is peaceful. Logically, you'd think the West should strike Iran, right? But here's the twist. Saudi Arabia doesn't want Iran to be attacked. And here's where the story gets really interesting. Saudi Arabia is leading the Gulf countries in rejecting any military strike on Iran, and is encouraging the U.S. to explore alternative options to deal with the Iranian nuclear issue. Now, this is a huge surprise, considering Iran is ideologically and geopolitically Saudi Arabia's #1 enemy in the region, whether religiously as the Shia powerhouse, economically, or militarily. Everything points to Iran being a rival. So why is Saudi Arabia holding back? On another front, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz raised a key question today. After the U.S. exposed that the Israeli army is preparing to launch a strike on Iran, why hasn't Israel acted yet? This seems extremely odd. Israel, theoretically, has more reason and urgency than the U.S. to attack Iran. So why the silence? And lastly, what would Saudi Arabia's military do if Iran actually were attacked? These are the kinds of serious questions being addressed now by American media outlets. And I urge you to pay attention, because what's happening in the Gulf region directly impacts Egyptian national security. To break this all down for you clearly, let's dive into the topic. The issue began when the IAEA revealed that Iran had removed surveillance cameras from most of its nuclear facilities. However, in return, Iran later allowed inspectors back in, following positive diplomatic signals that the White House might resume negotiations. The inspectors wrote a damning report just yesterday. The IAEA Director General, Rafael Grossi, confirmed that Iran has been enriching uranium at secret, undeclared sites. These are 3 locations not previously disclosed to the agency, and Iran is enriching uranium there at an accelerated rate. Iran has ramped up production of uranium enriched to 60%, which is alarmingly close to the 90% level required to build a nuclear weapon. According to the report accessed by AFP, the IAEA noted that Iran has not provided credible answers about these undeclared sites and called on Tehran to fully cooperate. Here's the key point. The agency isn't just concerned about general enrichment. It's focusing on the fact that Iran is accelerating enrichment to the 60% level, which is the highest Iran has ever achieved. Uranium enriched at 60% is easily convertible to 90%, which would be weapons grade. Since February, Iran has been conducting secret experiments to speed up its enrichment to 60%. So how much enriched uranium are we talking about? The exact amount wasn't clearly stated in most reports, except in the Wall Street Journal, which reported that before February, Iran had 274 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. That number has now increased to 408 kilograms, a jump of nearly 50%. The IAEA report confirmed this, stating that Iran's stockpile now exceeds 408 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, enough to produce more than 6 nuclear bombs. This is a catastrophic number. Why is Iran doing this? There are 2 main reasons. Iran fears potential hostile actions from Trump and wants to secure its defenses. Iran wants to enter negotiations from a position of strength, and enriched uranium is its only bargaining chip. The most dangerous type of uranium Iran currently possesses is the 60% enriched stockpile, which, as we noted, can be easily converted into military grade. Since February, Iran has been gearing up, and today, if they chose to enrich the 408 kilograms to 90%, they could make 10 nuclear bombs in a very short time. Here's a question nobody seems to be asking. Does the US not know about all this? Of course they do. American intelligence is undoubtedly aware that Iran is enriching uranium at secret sites. The IAEA isn't as capable as US intelligence agencies, and the Israeli Mossad definitely knows. So why hasn't the US acted? Because they're using the IAEA report as leverage. In fact, just yesterday, the US delivered a written proposal to Iran via Oman. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed he traveled to Oman and received a written offer from the US, something Iran had demanded after 5 rounds of talks based only on verbal promises. The US offer, as reported by the Axios news site, is shocking. The US will officially recognize Iran's right to enrich uranium. But Iran must stop all domestic enrichment activities, close its nuclear enrichment facilities, and instead, uranium will be enriched outside Iran in a multinational consortium. This enrichment consortium would include Iran, the US, Saudi Arabia, and one other Arab country, reportedly the UAE, and it would likely be based in Saudi Arabia under tight US supervision and technology. Iran would then receive the uranium it needs to run its civilian nuclear reactors, but not enrich it on its own soil. The New York Times commented that Supreme Leader Khamenei will likely reject this plan. After investing billions in nuclear infrastructure, Iran will not want to depend on Saudi Arabia for uranium. So, if Iran rejects the US offer, what happens next? Military analysts believe this would give the US a green light to strike. A senior US official confirmed that Washington has called on Iran to cease all enrichment and join a regional nuclear energy consortium with Saudi Arabia and other Arab states. Meanwhile, there's heavy US military activity at Diego Garcia, a critical US base in the Indian Ocean. The base has seen increased deployment of nuclear-capable bombers, a sign that the US is preparing for a potential strike on Iran from outside the Gulf region. If Iran rejects the offer, the next move is likely a military one, especially since, by international consensus, Iran's nuclear program can no longer be considered peaceful. So, back to the big question everyone is asking. Why hasn't Israel struck Iran yet? Up to this point, let's refer to an article published in Haaretz, and here's what the writer says. Pay close attention. He explains how earlier, CNN revealed that US intelligence had detected serious Israeli military movements, ammunition transfers, military drills, clearly signaling preparations for a possible strike on Iran. But the author raises a critical question. Why would US intelligence leak these preparations? He argues that Israel never intended to strike Iran in the first place, and that Donald Trump himself orchestrated the leak in coordination with Israel. Why? To pressure Iran into negotiations. Now about launching a unilateral strike, Israel finds itself stuck between 2 impossible choices. On one hand, it wants to preserve its unique, strategic alliance with Washington and avoid angering the US. On the other hand, it sees Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat. While Israel continues to insist on its right to act alone if needed, experts argue that any solo action without US coordination would cause a historic rift in US-Israeli relations. Also, Trump's leak about the military buildup serves another purpose: to increase pressure on Iran to accept the American proposal, a multi-pronged psychological and diplomatic strategy. So back to the question Haaretz asks. If Israel is preparing to strike Iran, why hasn't it done so yet? Why did Netanyahu recently say, "We must stop Iran's nuclear program now," but not act? The answer, according to the Haaretz columnist, is sobering. Israel simply cannot strike Iran on its own, not in the current circumstances. Set aside military capabilities for a moment. Yes, Israel lacks nuclear-capable bombers and the capacity to destroy Iran's program completely without assistance. This has been said many times. But what's more alarming is that Donald Trump reportedly halted military coordination with Israel, fearing that a unilateral Israeli strike would derail ongoing U.S.-Iran talks. According to Israel's Channel 2, Trump warned Netanyahu in strong terms not to act alone and considered the timing inappropriate. A strike, experts say, would only delay Iran's nuclear program by 1 or 2 years, but would give Iran every justification to fully militarize its program and enrich uranium to 90%. Also, if Israel attacks, Iran will likely relocate its enriched uranium to hidden sites, pushing the program underground and making it even harder to monitor or halt in the future. Furthermore, Israel is not prepared to handle Iran's retaliation. It's not just about launching the strike, it's also about surviving the consequences. In the past, when Israel attacked Iranian assets, it had the full support of Arab allies and coordination with U.S. air defenses to intercept Iranian missiles. That's no longer the case. Consider the recent incident where a Gulf delegation led by Saudi Arabia's foreign minister was barred by Israel from visiting the West Bank. The Gulf states are no longer aligned with Israel on key regional issues. There's no trust, no shared strategy. Back in 2024, Gulf countries actively helped intercept Iranian missiles. Jordan even deployed fighter jets to shoot them down. But now, the entire Middle East is reshaping, and much of it resentful of Israel. So if Israel strikes Iran today, no one will help intercept Iranian retaliation. America won't get support to stop Iranian missiles headed toward Israel. Israel would be exposed. So the conclusion is, Israel simply can't act alone right now. Now, let's revisit the question. Why is Saudi Arabia actively opposing a strike on Iran? It may seem odd, but the answer lies in strategic patience. Saudi Arabia sees Iran as being in its weakest state in years. Israeli strikes on Iranian radar systems and air defenses have already exposed Iran's skies. More importantly, Saudi Arabia is pursuing a non-military strategy to weaken Iran, and it's working. They've made strong diplomatic moves in Lebanon. They're engaging with Syria's new government. Even in Iraq, Shia militias have lost power. Saudi Arabia believes in a peaceful disarmament strategy. If there's a military strike now, it would bring total chaos to the Gulf. Why? Because Iran's first move would be to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, just like the Houthis did in the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. Iran would target every ship crossing Hormuz, using mines, missiles, or drones. And since 70% of Gulf oil exports pass through that waterway, it would cripple Gulf economies. Also, the Gulf states are focused on economic development and mega projects, not war. Saudi Arabia wants to seize this opportunity to de-escalate and disarm Iran peacefully. But what's disrupting that plan? The IAEA report, which Netanyahu is now using to pressure for immediate action. He sees it as the perfect justification to stop Iran's nuclear program once and for all. But let's be clear. If war breaks out, Israel will be the biggest winner, and the Gulf states will be the biggest losers. And let me be clear, this is not about being anti-Gulf. It's just geopolitics. Iran has made it clear it would target U.S. military bases in the Gulf during any conflict, and there are plenty. Some may say, but Saudi Arabia doesn't host U.S. bases. Sure, but if any Gulf country is attacked, Saudi Arabia will join the defense per the Gulf Cooperation Council agreement. So if Iran attacks Bahrain, Kuwait, or the UAE, Saudi Arabia will be drawn in. don't expect Iran to uphold its peace agreement with Saudi Arabia either. One of Iran's implicit threats is, if we're hit, we're tearing up all treaties, with friends and foes alike. A U.S. strike would not only aim to destroy Iran's nuclear program, but also to cripple its economy and destabilize the regime itself. So, what's next? Let's hope Iran accepts the U.S. proposal. That seems to be the most reasonable solution for now. And remember, Israel isn't relying on its own military power or even America's. Netanyahu's only hope is that Iran rejects the U.S. proposal and war begins. Let's pray for peace, let's pray for the safety of the Arab world, and let's watch closely in the coming days. I hope I've explained this clearly for you. Stay safe and see you soon.